Today's date is June 3rd, 2024. My name is Karen Levine, and I'm interviewing Ray Canner. We are in New York, USA, and the language is English. Could you say and spell your first and last name?
My name is Ray Kane, R-A-Y, and then Kane, K-A-N-E-R.
Did you have any other names?
Well, I was born Rachel Brick.
Could you spell that?
Rachel Brick, B-R-Y-K.
And where were you born?
Lodz, Poland.
And what date were you born?
January 10, 1927.
And what was your father's name, and can you spell it?
Nehemiah Brick. N-E-C-H-E-M-I-A Brick, B-R-Y-K.
And do you know when he was born?
No.
And do you know when he died?
Yes. My father died in the ghetto in 1940, lack of medical care.
And how about your mom? What was her name?
My mother's name was Dvora Leah Rottenberg Kane. She died in 1942. She died of starvation in neglect.
And did you have any brothers or sisters?
I had 3 brothers and 1 sister.
What were their names, and do you know their birth?
My oldest brother was Joseph Brick. My other brother was Leon Brick, and my 3rd brother was Elush Brick.
And your sister's name?
Her name was Sally.
Sally. And do you know when they were born or died? Or you know when they died?
I know when they died, approximately, yes. They were born, my oldest brother was 14 years older than I. He died of illness in 1939. He had cancer and tuberculosis. I know he was 26 years old. My 2nd brother was 3 years older than I, and he lived through 5 years of concentration camps. He was killed in Auschwitz just before the Russians liberated Auschwitz.
What was his name?
His name was Leon Kane.
And your youngest brother?
Elush Kane. Now this was 1942, must be, yeah. They announced they need people in the ghetto for work. Only healthy people. I was sick, I had temperature. So the doctor gave me a note, I'm not able to travel. It was all this a scheme. They collected 10,000 only young, healthy people. I walked with him to the train, and this is what he told me. If I live through the war, I'm still feeling healthy. I want to be a farmer. I want to go to Palestine and grow food. This was his last conversation with me. And then they took all these people, only young, healthy people from the ghetto, and within 3 days, they killed them. They gassed them. Not in any place, but right there in Poland.
And this was from the Lodz Ghetto?
Yes.
What year was that, do you know?
Let me think. I know. This was 94. about 1942.
And how about your sister?
My sister survived with me. Now, I came to United States in 1947. I came because for young teenagers, because I still wasn't 18, England, Sweden, and United States gave permission for us to come. So this is how I came to United States on a boat. Now, I was liberated in Bergen-Belsen. Now, Bergen-Belsen was occupied by the English. And I have something to say about this too. The cooks and the army, the English army, saw the way people survived, the way they look. So they increased the food and increased also the fat stuff in the soups. And let me tell you, a lot of my friends, we were all young. They ate this in 24 hours, less than 24 hours they were dead. I always thought they had an upset stomach because they didn't eat for 6 years. But here, the doctors told me it wasn't so. You see, because of people that starved for a long time need different way of treating with food. And the way I survived was only because when I was liberated from Bergen-Belsen, nuns came from Scandinavian countries. They volunteered to wash us and take care of us. And the nuns had experience because they did it in Africa for many years. They never gave us to eat. They gave us tea and biscuits and DDT'd us for the lice. And this how a person like me survived, because the younger people ate so much and they didn't survive even 24 hours.
Let's go back a little earlier, though. What did your father do before the Holocaust for a living? What was his occupation?
Okay. You know, Poland was very anti-Semitic. But in these years, like most probably in the 20s, beginning of the 1920s, my father got a commission, a job from the government. But when Hitler came to power, the Polish people said Polska dla Polaków, which meant Polish people, only Polish people are entitled to be Poles. And he was fired from this position, so we struggled. But we had a state in a country. It was outskirts of Łódź, where I was born.
What do you remember about your life before the Holocaust? What's your first memory?
Well, I had a few memories, because after my father was fired, we had to live where our estate was, which was a small place. And this is where it was a mental institution, the largest mental institution in Poland, Kochanówek. So we lived there, and I had to go to a Christian school. We were 2 Jewish children in a class. Let me tell you, it wasn't that nice for the Jewish children. Like when I was chosen to do in a theater, we made a show, a play. The main person of this act, they were not embarrassed. to tell the teacher, why do you give a Polish, this is our holiday, and she's a Jewish person. Why are you giving her this honor? The children were very anti-Semitic already. So this being in this school was not nice for me. I was and another person just in the class, 2 children, Jewish children. But then we moved to Lodz before the war. And I attended a public school, but a Jewish public school. It was such a pleasure. It was to be among your own, and you knew nobody was different. So these are my first years of my life.
Do you remember your friends from the Jewish public school?
I remember the friends from the Christian school.
Oh.
And I tell you one fact that I always speak about. I went to see my friend, a Christian. First of all, every Sunday when they left the church and I played with them, they always said, you killed Jesus. But I said, I wasn't lived then. It doesn't matter. The Jews killed Jesus. This was coming out from the church. I visited my Christian friend, and her mother was feeding a little boy, and she said he didn't want to eat. So she said, if you don't eat, a Jew with a long beard will come and take you away. So these are my memories of having Christian friends.
Right.
And I tell you, we went into the ghetto, nobody helped us.
Before you went into Ghetto, what was your life like at home with your parents and your brothers and sisters?
Before the war?
Before the war, before the Ghetto.
Well, I had an adult grown brother that got married. Unfortunately, he passed away just June 21st, 1939. He had cancer and tuberculosis. This was a very bad, situation for a young person like me. I couldn't stay home because it was contagious. I had to live with my grandparents. Not really grandparents, it was my aunts.
Were your parents religious?
My mother was very Orthodox. And this is also why she died in 1940. Because she wouldn't eat any treif. When we got horse meat in the ghetto, she wouldn't eat. She gave us, she had her own dishes, and she really starved. On top of it, when one of my brothers was still home, she used to give him some of her food.
Was your father religious?
My father, you see, it's a different situation here, what means religious. He wasn't so religious because he was a soldier for 7 years. He was in the Russian army, and then he was taken prisoner of war by the Germans, World War I we're speaking about. And so, of course, it meant that he wasn't so Orthodox, but he still prayed every day, went to synagogue every day. Today they would consider this a religious person. In these years, he was just modern, My mother, for instance, as I said, was very Orthodox. She gave her life for this.
What was your favorite meal growing up?
Meal?
Before the Holocaust, before the Ghetto?
Let me tell you, I was a sick child. I had a lot of problems breathing, and I never had appetite. So they had to feed me like eggnocks and all kinds of things to drink because I couldn't eat.
Do you remember celebrating holidays?
Yes.
Which holiday? What do you remember about that? What are your memories about that?
Passover. You know, my mother had to clean this house maybe a whole week. And then when we sat down to the Seder, I only remember one thing. I woke up in bed because it was such a long Seder that children really couldn't fell asleep. So I remember that all of a sudden in the morning I am in bed.
Now, when did things start to change
In Poland,
in Poland for you?
for me, you see, my two brothers went to the Ghettos. They really were like forced to. And my older brother was not religious at all. So it was, I didn't change really till the war started. And then there is no such a question of eating trade or not eating. That's all you had.
Did your father or mother want to leave Poland before the war, when things started to get bad?
You see, my father, after World War, he was a soldier. After World War I, his brother, which was here in Feyalon, they lived, in Peresson, sent him money to come. So he went to the place where they used to live, and then he had money and he made a lot of business. So he said, what do I have to go to United States? I have the money, I can make my business right here. And this is the reason he came home and never went. And my uncle here from New Jersey never spoke to him after this.
Really? That's amazing. How did you learn about the invasion of Poland, or it just sort of what happened?
Well, the invasion of Poland, let me tell you, I know in Lodz, all of a sudden they said on the mics, the Germans took over everything in the government, and we heard that young people, please go to Warsaw, we have to save Warsaw, and we have to fight. So naturally, all these young guys started on their way on foot, or maybe on a horse, to go to Warsaw. Aeroplanes were flying, German aeroplanes, and they killed them or injured them all, because it was a setup.
Now, do you remember being ordered to the ghetto, your family being ordered?
Yes.
What do you remember about hearing about that?
Well, we had an order. 3 days. You can take what you can carry, and you have to go to the Baluti, which was outskirts of Lodz, which were slums. Let me tell you, the bathrooms outside, most of the time no hot water. So this is where we had to go from Lodz, the town, to Baluti.
How far was that?
It wasn't too far. It was like, how should I say, like downtown here from us. But the question was only that we had to find an apartment. Now, we were 350,000 Jewish people in Lodz, mostly poor Orthodox Jews. We came to the ghetto, of course. A lot of people thought it's better to go to a different area, not to be in a big town, because Lodz was the second largest city in Poland, so they went to different areas. So out of the 350,000 Jews, 170,000 came into the ghetto. And they had to struggle to find lodging.
How did your family find lodging?
They found an apartment. Actually, they lived in this apartment because when my brother got sick, and it's a whole story, I don't think I should tell this story, because this really changed my life. He was married, and my father had to take him to a doctor, so they took him to Austria. When he came back with my brother, she closed the door and he didn't have where to live. So my parents had to take him home.
His wife closed the door. Okay.
Yeah. So, so I was also a child with certain illnesses, old breathing problems. So they had to send me to my aunt to live because my brother was contagious. He had tuberculosis.
Now, the apartment that you lived in the ghetto, how big was that?
I remember it had a bedroom and a kitchen.
And how many people were in this apartment?
Well, my father, my mother, my sister, and two brothers, and my oldest brother, because she closed the door, my mother had to take him home. And my brother died June 21st, 1939, in our apartment.
What was life like for you in the ghetto? Were you working or going to school? What were you doing?
I went to school in the ghetto. Well, the ghetto opened in 1939. And there were all kinds of different periods of what it was with us. First, we had money, so we bought the food. My father was alive with my mother, and I had two brothers. And my third brother, as I told you, was so sick, and he lived with us. So as long as my father had money, we had food. And then other people were in the same condition. So when we came to the ghetto, and the oldest was Chaim Rumkowski, was in charge of the ghetto, Lodge Ghetto. So they had to open up like a government. So we have all kinds of Department of Health, Department of Sanitation. Everything was set up like a government, and Chaim Rumkowski was in charge. And he had to do what the Germans told him to do. So the Germans were not in charge of the ghetto, but they were in charge of Rumkowski, and he did whatever he's supposed to do. Now, the history still doesn't reconcile whether he did all right or he didn't all right. The question is, still, we survived, many of us. But other people are very harsh on him. As a matter of fact, when he arrived with his family to Auschwitz, the capos for the ghetto killed him.
What did Rutkowski do that people were so against?
Rumkowski.
What?
You know what? Every time they wanted people, we didn't know where the people go. Let me tell you. No radio, no papers, no nothing. We were in the dark because we know that people were sent away, we didn't know where. So we don't know about this. But Rumkowski most probably knew because he had orders, and every time whatever they wanted, he gave. So we still had a ghetto. Well, let me tell you, when they deported him, he was killed brutally with the whole family. And believe me, they didn't deserve it, because I worked with his sister-in-law, and she was also killed. And she worked with me in the children's resort. We were about 600 children, and she worked with me because we used to collect from everybody a spoon of flour or a spoon of sugar to give it to the children that were in the hospital, or the children that was very sick.
So you were working with them? to
I
help
worked
them.
with Helena Rumkowski, and they killed her too.
Yeah.
So you know what? It wasn't always the right thing to do.
Now, you said you went to school in the ghetto?
Yes.
No.
I went to the school was not within Lodz. It was an outskirt, the Marashin.
And you were allowed to go out of the ghetto to that?
This was a part of the ghetto, with the cemetery was also a part of the ghetto.
Now, how about food when you were in the ghetto?
Well, in the beginning, my father said he had money, so we bought food. And then was the end of it. They closed the ghetto, and we could not go in or out with barbed wire. The only good part of it was not electric barbed wire, just a regular barbed wire. So nobody got killed unless they smuggled themselves out of the ghetto.
Was there a lot of smuggling?
No.
Now, you said they closed the ghetto. Do you remember what year that was or about?
I would say it was the end of 39.
Now, when, the war started September 1st, 1939, so it had to be the end, I guess. Now, when you were in the ghetto, they started to send people out of the ghetto?
Not yet.
Not yet. When did that start?
This started we were in the ghetto maybe a year or two.
Right.
We didn't know about where the people go. I only know my middle brother, Leon, volunteered in 1940 to go to Germany to work.
And he was killed.
So 400 young guys, he was 17, young guys went to Germany. And what did they do? They built the Straße nach Berlin from which one was it? Amode. Anyway, this is what he did. And then they sent him home, but he entered the ghetto, we didn't know about it. They sent him, and he was in another concentration camp in Poland, and he lived through till almost the end of the war. Then they liquidated this concentration camp, and they sent him to Auschwitz. And this is what their friends told me. It was soon before the Russian liberated Auschwitz. And what happened was he did something. He stole a bread from a pushcart, and they killed him. And this was very close that Auschwitz was liberated by the Russians.
Now, when you were in the ghetto, your parents both died when you were in the ghetto.
My both parents had the honor die in a bed.
Right.
My friends' parents didn't. They were shot, they were gassed, but my both parents, by coincidence, got sick. My father got sick already in 1939. As soon as the ghetto didn't even open. And he died in a hospital. My mother died of starvation, but when we called to the health department and they said, give me symptoms. So I said, high temperature, and she feels very sick. Typhoid fever. So they said typhoid fever, and as soon as they said it, the same night, I remember like it was now, they came and they locked us up and they said, Eintritt verboten. Entry is not allowed. And they put a big sign of it. And the same night, there was embarkation. Now, this was March, and it was snowing and bitter cold, and the people that were taken away at night cried and prayed to God they should let them stay, but they took them away in the night. And we figured that this is not to live.
So
But because we were Eintritt verboten, typhoid fever, which he didn't have, saved our lives. This was all the time. For something happened beyond us doing it, saved our lives.
Now, I think you told me that there was a time in the ghetto that you had to hide from the Germans.
Well,
could you tell us about that?
Yes. They also used this hiding. You see, they all students, when they interview me, ask, what's the worst thing? So I tell you what the worst thing was. For me was hunger, cold. We were so cold. These winters were so, we didn't have enough coal. And then fear. We were always afraid. We were always hiding in the ghetto because the Germans said could enter anytime they wanted. And we were, I tell you something, if we had a baby in the hiding, it was so dangerous for this baby because they closed their mouths, and some didn't even survive. That's how bad it was, the hiding.
Where would you hide?
Closets. I tell you, I lived through one of the embarkation. This was the last. They took these people to Auschwitz. We didn't know. I was just on the way from my friend that I saw the Germans came back because they usually, by 5 o'clock, they were gone. But this particular embarkation, all of a sudden, we see 5 o'clock, they back, and I'm in my friend's house. So my friend's mother pleaded with me, stay. I said, no, I have to go to my sister. My sister was with my friend because my friend's parents were taken away, so she lived with us. So I said, no, I have to go to my sister, I can't leave her. So of course, I was marching with a whole group of people. The Germans were standing. Matter of fact, I went over to the German guy, and I said to him, can I go for my sister and I come back? So he said, I sent somebody. But after he did it, he really sent it. But she didn't want to come out because she didn't trust. That's how she survived. But I ran away. So when the German wasn't looking, I ran in a police from the ghetto was after me, and I said, what do you care? Why don't you let me go? And finally he let me go. So I went up, and I tell you, it was very quiet. Now the steps were from wood, and you wouldn't believe they make a noise. And here I'm sneaking in to the top of the, I forgot just which, and when I opened the door, people were hiding there, and they were fuming. Get out of here. Because of you, they discover us. So I had to leave. But the doors were all chopped up. So I went into the first apartment available, and I took a sweater, and I took a plate and a spoon to prepare to go. And I was hiding there in the closet. I don't know whose apartment it was, until they left. So they took the people, and we don't know where they sent them. But I survived. My sister also survived.
It must have been really difficult for you and your sister when your parents died. Did you stay in the apartment? Did you live with someone else, or what did you do?
We had to leave because the house that we lived in was wood. One day we woke up and they took the house apart, the wall, because they need. I told you we didn't have heat. We were dying of the cold in the winter. So they took away some of the house, so they gave us another apartment. So we shared with two girls that the parents were taking away.
Now, how long were you in the ghetto, the Lodz ghetto? From when you were there, when did you leave the ghetto?
Well, the ghetto, first of all, we're speaking about Lodz. They gave us permission that we can take 3 days. We can take whatever we can carry in 3 days to go to the Bawuti. So we got an apartment there. And then, we stayed there till we went to Auschwitz.
Tell me about that. Did they select you to go to Auschwitz, or how did that happen?
Well, we were in the ghetto a few years, must have been till 1942. And of course, the Russians were approaching, so they closed the ghetto. And they said we can carry whatever we can to a center. So of course we took all the bedding, pots and pans, so make it easy for the Germans, because everything went to Germany. We didn't go because we were sent to Auschwitz.
I assume you went on a train to Auschwitz.
Oh yes. So first we were hiding it was a meadow, and it was already in the Germans were there. But so my cousins came, because we all lived in Lodz, and they decided we should go, and they wanted us to go too. So my sister, myself, and my friend that lived with me, because my brother wasn't there anymore. Now, my brother this was 1942, and they decided that people go to work, only healthy young people. I was sick. I had temperature, so I was not allowed to go. They accumulated 10,000 only healthy young people, and they were killed within 3 days. They didn't take them to Germany. They were killed in one of these killing places in Poland.
When you went to Auschwitz, was your sister with you?
Yes.
And
all my cousins.
And all your cousins? How many cousins were with you?
What about, let's see, at least 7 or 8. And my aunt.
Was the train trip, do you remember the train trip?
I tell you, the train to Auschwitz, it was hot, it was summer, So the only openings was that the wagons had, the wood was not closed. So in between was an opening. So this is where we could breathe because the air came in. We were about 80 girls going, no, it's not only girls, 80 people going to Auschwitz.
And when you got there, what happened
To Auschwitz?
to Auschwitz?
Okay, first, they marched us. I tell you, I saw people with wire, and one group of people, women, was like very dark, charcoal. I couldn't understand. You see, they committed suicide. So they touched the wire and they were electrocuted. And if you touch the person's hand, you get the same. So a whole line of women were like this, charcoal. I went over to the German soldier and I said, "Where sind die Leute?" I said, "Who are these people?" He said, "These sind doch verrückt. They are crazy." He said, all these people, the women, committed suicide. Now, also, they were asking, the rest of the people were asking us, please, in a few languages, in Polish, Yiddish, in German, give us what you have. You don't need it. Give us all this. Nobody gave anything. We didn't believe. I went over. So the Germans said they are crazy. So I thought they crazy because they looked crazy, shaved. We still had hair.
Were you scared?
I tell you one thing. If I would have a pill, I would have committed suicide at this point. This point I already saw that it's not a normal place.
How long were you in Auschwitz?
Not long, about 2 weeks.
And what happened then? Where did you go from there?
First of all, let me tell you, in Auschwitz, we didn't know, but the people were sent there before, so some of the people that we came had family there. So the girls came over and said, "You see this smoke? These are the people you came with." Of course we were in a shock. We didn't, because we didn't know. So they took us, first of all, there were baths, and there were dishes, rings, watches, anything, earrings, all this prepared. Whatever we had to put it in the right place. All this went to Germany, everything what we had. Then they just shaved us, and then they gave us a pajama top and a skirt, nothing else. They took away our shoes. They just left us with wooden shoes. I used to recognize my sister by the skirt, because women without hair looked completely different. It wasn't normal. None of our lives was, at this part, was normal.
You were in Auschwitz for 2 weeks, right?
Yes.
And did you work there or just...
First of all, I wasn't feeling well. This was another story. And then nobody worked. Nobody. We just got rations. When we came, the first food was a bowl with soup for 5 girls. No spoon, nothing. Just everybody gave a sip, and the other girl took a sip. Now, I have all my cousins with me, so we didn't cheat. Because, you could only take and give it to your next cousin. After this, they gave us a lodging, a big place with 5 on the bottom and 5 on top, wood. And this is where we were just with a blanket. This was the place we were sleeping. And of course, every day we had to be counted.
Now, you said you were there for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Where did you go next? Where did you go from there?
After this, they sent us to a meadow on a green wiese.
Could you explain that? Yeah.
Green wiese. This was a place, a meadow with grass, green.
Right.
This is where they sent us. And I tell you, we were so cold. We were freezing. This is how we had to spend this night. We had to sit next to my sister, both of us, so our bodies were warm, the next body. And in the morning, they let us take a shower. And then they opened the windows and the doors to dry up. And then they gave us a package. First, a dress and shoes, nothing else. So it was random. So what happened? Everybody got a dress. My sister got with long sleeve, a long dress. I got, so she said, you see what they gave me? So she complained. I got a short dress, short sleeves, and I paid the price for this. And then, after the shower, they opened the windows and the doors, they let us dry up, and they gave us a package. It was some bread and marmalade, and we got a train, and we were sent away.
Were you scared of where you were going to be sent?
We didn't know where we were going. No, we didn't know about Auschwitz, that we were completely like, because you had no radio, no newspaper, no nothing. So we didn't know anything, what's going on in
So
the
when they
world.
sent you out of Auschwitz, after you left there, where did you go?
To Germany. This was Hambieren by Hanover, close to Hanover, which is a big town. The Germans said after the war, we didn't know. What do you mean you didn't know? The people close to the camps didn't know. When we marched, instead of give us some water, the kids had thrown stones at us. Nobody gave us something to drink.
You said you went to
Hambieren by Hanover.
Do you know how to spell that? Or
Hambieren is Habbieren.
And that was by Hanover, Germany.
Yes.
And what did you do there?
Building huts. So you know what? This was September. It was so cold. I was naked arms, in a short dress. I was freezing and I was sick. And we had to carry, to do the huts, pre-existent, because they took just some cement, one of these big, and we built a house, a hut.
How many of you were there building?
Well, we were, from our town, we were 450 girls. And after a while, I couldn't take it anymore. So I said to my sister, listen, I am going to report I'm sick. If I die, I die. I can't go on. I'm freezing and I'm sick. So, you see, this is another time that you don't count how you survive. So I was taken, all of a sudden I was taken to a place with a bed and a sheets, and I in a sick bed. It was such a surprise where I'm going. So you know what? After I recovered, they discharged me. Now, I was out with a few girls that were discharged.
And this was in the same, by this camp?
Yes, Hamby. Then one of the, he was an officer, came and we were transferred to another camp.
Was your sister still with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was, after I was discharged from the hospital, this officer comes and he looks at me, the other girls, and he said to me, "Du, Kleine, komm." I didn't know where I'm going, but this was a miracle where I'm going. He took me, first he brought me to the kitchen. So there wasn't much to eat in the kitchen except raw potatoes or a carrot. But this wasn't all. I was there a few days. And every day, for night, I used to go to camp. Then they needed a maid, 2 maids actually, because there were 20 soldiers, 10 in each room. So I was chosen by them to be a maid. There were 10 soldiers. I have to tell you my relationship with the soldiers. Now, these soldiers looked at me and they couldn't get over that I look normal, because they had pictures for years how Jewish people look and how Jewish children look. All of a sudden, I don't look like this, I look like their own children. Then, so, I took German in the ghetto. I also speak Jewish. And I waited a few weeks, but I spoke after this fluent German. So you know what? They decided, du bist doch keine Jidin, you're not Jewish, you must be German. I said, nein, deine Mutter, your mother was German. No. Anyway, my name is Brick. The German soldier's name was Brickman. Brick is in between. Germans are also called, maybe they spell different the name, but Brick is, so they wanted to tell me, you must come from Germany. You are Christian. You cannot be a Jew. Why? I spoke fluent German. On top of it, when we were in the ghetto, and we were transferred from the city, they left the libraries in the ghetto, so you could read whatever you want. Of course, I read most of the German literature. So, let me tell you, they had a shock. So again, you cannot be Jewish. Du bist doch keine Jidin. No, ich bin eine Jidin. And over and over again. So, they were very nice to me. They gave me new shoes because I had the wood shoes. And also, what happened was like a miracle. Because my food, my sister gave to the girls, 10 girls every night. Because she had my food, and my cousins had my food, because I didn't eat in the camp. And then every day, whatever the soldiers didn't eat, 3 meals, because after a while they came from Russia. They fought in Russia, these German. They were starved, but after a while they couldn't eat so much. So whatever they left me, I put it into a pail. And they helped me to get us into the ghetto, to the camp. So this is how we were for a while.
How long were you there?
In Hambiren till the end of the year. And then they marched us in to Bergen-Belsen. And even in Bergen-Belsen.
Now, when did you go to Bergen-Belsen? Do you remember?
First of all, you don't remember.
You don't know the date, right?
I know that the Russians were marching and the Germans were losing the war. So the German, one of them, I have the picture of him, he used to come to Bergen-Belsen. He was there, but, you know, he used to give me a package of food. Like he marched and then he left. He, you know, instead of staying the 7 hours, he didn't have to. So he came, he gave me a package of food and left again.
And that was one of the Germans that had been at the work camp. And
yes, the work I worked with.
Yeah.
So this, I have pictures, and also a poem he wrote to me after the war.
Now, the Russians liberated Bergen-Belsen, right? Oh, no, the British, I'm sorry, the British.
The English.
Yeah. So tell me about that. When did you know that was happening, and how did you react to that?
Okay. I was sick. Okay, I really had typhoid fever. So my sister had, you know, the Bergen-Belsen was divided in parts. So in order for her to bring me to the Riviera, she had to pass, but she had to carry with another girl a body. So in the blanket, the girls were, 4 girls were taken because they had 10,000 bodies already accumulated in a pit. So they just had to bring it, but so she could take me to this Riviera. There was like a hospital, and because she had permission that I could leave, but they thought I'm dying. So they put me on top because they figured it's only for 1 night. But I survived. There was no enough water. The only thing, when I came, they had a place where they had a sink. So they said my sister should wash me before I lie down, because we were full of lice, all of us. So she washed me, and apparently, you know, cold water ran the temperature down. And they brought me into this place, and I was on top, but in the same place was my secretary from the Ghetto's high school. When she saw me, she asked them to transfer me close to her. She wanted to take care of me. They did a lot because I was very sick. And then, you know, it was just very short before the end of the war. The war was ending. So a German soldier sent me a package, and he wrote to me, "Try to survive, the war is almost over." So, you know, so Sima was on the bridge. They had, like here, 2 girls, and on top 2 girls. So she took care of me because she was the secretary of the gymnasium that I went in the ghetto. So she knew me. They used to take a piece of bread and make a ball out of it and push it in with a finger so I should be able to swallow this. I couldn't swallow anymore.
Now, when the English came,
Yes. And they came, and I tell you something, they waited, I think, a whole day to get in because they knew it's typhoid fever. So they had to have uniforms with rubber legs and arms. This is how they came in. And also I was lucky because the sick people, people volunteered for Scandinavian countries, and nuns came to wash us. So they knew not to give us to eat.
do you remember the date that the English came in?
This was 4/15. Yeah, 4/15.
April 15th, right at the
Yeah.
end of the war. Now, from there, did you go to a DP camp?
Yeah.
Where was the DP camp?
This is a whole story which I tell you later, because this is Germany, and Germany is divided by the English and American. So we were liberated by the English. We didn't want to. We want to be on the American side. Look, it was a lot of problems too with the eating. So many friends of ours died. Today they were here, tomorrow they were dead. Bergen-Belsen has so many young people buried because of the food. Because the English, saw the people and they gave them a lot of food. More the better. And of course, the people who lived 12 hours maybe. This was the end of the...
Now, you said you went to a DP camp, displaced persons camp, was that in Germany or?
Germany. So what happened next? This is Bergen-Belsen. And a lot of people were liberated in this camp. As a matter of fact, I was sitting and waiting for my brothers to show up because I was always at the window, and my husband showed up. It wasn't my husband, but I knew him from the ghetto.
Yep.
I knew him because I worked with his sister.
Okay, let's talk about your husband. What was his name?
Well, his name is Leon Kane. It was my husband.
Right. And how did you knew him from the ghetto, you said. Okay,
Yeah.
Tell us about that story.
Okay. I used to work with his sister. We used to make all these insignias with beads for these uniforms. This is what I did in one place. I did other things too. So I used to go because the ghetto was divided in 2 parts because the Germans needed underneath the street. So we had like an overpass that we had to go to the other side of the ghetto. You had to use steps up, steps down, and then we went to work. A lot of people went to work. And underneath, the Germans had the street free. And of course, cars and it was a very, what happened?
Oh, no, keep going.
Okay, I'm sorry.
The cars were go underneath, buses, but only we saw it from the top.
Do you want to take a 5-minute break?
You want to drink something, people?
Okay, now we are back from a break, and you were starting to tell us about how you met your husband.
Well, but I met him in the ghetto, just because we went together to the same area. So we had to pass from one side of the ghetto to the other to work. But during the liberation, I was liberated in Bergen-Belsen. And I had the two brothers, my sister, myself, we had the two brothers that we waited for them to come also through Bergen-Belsen. So I was always at the window. So I saw my husband. He came into Bergen-Belsen. So because I knew him from the ghetto, just because we walked to the work together, nothing more. So I was very happy to meet him. And then he stayed in Bergen-Belsen. We all stayed there. And of course, my sister and myself, and he came to visit me very often. And there was a
We are back from a break. So your husband, then you just knew him, and he would visit you in Bergen-Belsen, and?
Well, he was staying in Bergen-Belsen, and he started to visit me, and another fellow that my sister knew also started. And they brought us stuff. But what did happen? They saw things, so they took it, like sheets, cups, plates. So my husband, Leon, gave it to me. And all of a sudden, the other fellow that came to my sister said, I had something like this, a cup. Oh, this looks like what I had. I realized that he took it from them. They stole it from somebody else. He stole. So I started to throw out everything through the window. It was so funny.
And what happened to his family?
Leon's family?
Yes, what happened to Leon's family?
Well, two sisters survived. Esther, Regina, because they split. Some of them went to a different area when the war broke out. And, one of them, my sister-in-law, Marsha, was a Christian and pretending to be a Christian. And she visited the family once in a while. She had to learn all the prayers because she was living with the other 5 girls, and they suspected that she's Jewish, and they would have denounced her. So she had to write to her neighbor to send her a letter that's like a daughter, she's a daughter. And she left these letters to make sure that they can read it, because otherwise they would denounce it to the Germans.
And where was Leon during the Holocaust? Was he in a camp?
He was in camps, yes. He was in camps. He came. Now, my brothers didn't come, but Leon came. Oh, it was such a joy that I knew somebody that survived. So this is how we met again.
And how did that progress? In other words, when did it start getting romantic?
Romantic? Well, he used to bring me stuff from the fellow that stole from somebody else.
Yeah.
It was the funniest thing. Oh, I had something like this. I figured, okay, he stole it from him, he stole from somebody else.
Now, how long were you in the DP camp?
I left to United States July 27, 19, what was already mixed up with the 1942,
1946 or 47?
47.
Now,
I
and
came
were you
19
married at that point?
Well, I was married, boy, I took out because we wanted to come together. Now I wanted to go to Israel, but Leon had here a father. He wanted to go to his father. So the story was really, he got very sick. I had a story with my brother that he was dumped while he was sick. And I took it very serious. So I didn't want he should go by himself. In order for us to go together, we had to be married. So I went for the license, and I wasn't 18, they wouldn't give it to me. So anyway, because somebody has to sign in Germany if you want to get married under 18. So anyway, the judge saw the situation, I have nobody, they signed. And this, how we both came at the same time to United States. And then we had a Jewish wedding here.
You had a Jewish wedding in the United States, or?
Yes, in the
Yes.
United States.
Now, when you came to the United States, where did you settle?
I went to Patterson, to Fayalo. My uncle, my father's brother was there, and his family.
Now, you didn't speak any English, did you?
I did. How did I speak English? I had a teacher in Germany while I was in a DP camp. So he spoke German, and we were taught English.
I assume you came by ship to America.
I came by ship 10 days. In 10 days I was vomiting. I cannot tell you, bad experience.
Have you ever been on a ship since?
I was invited to a party. They didn't travel, but the ship went like this. They had to give me something, a Band-Aid here.
Now, when you came to America, you said you spoke some English?
Yes.
And you settled in Patterson, New Jersey.
Well, I went first. We slept. It was Saturday, and Leon's father wouldn't. He was very Orthodox. This is his father. So Shabbat, so we went to sleep to Hayas, and then in the morning, Sunday, he came for us. So we lived, well, we had a wedding, first of all. I never saw a wedding. I never saw anything. You know, the first baby that I held was my own. Never saw an infant. People didn't have babies. The babies were killed.
Now, when you settled in America, what did Leon do for work?
Nothing. And he was sick. So finally, my managers in Brooklyn sent him to a sanatorium. He was in a sanatorium 3 years. I was alone with a baby here. I went to school. I finished.
What school? Where did you go to school?
Drake Business School. Yeah, I went a whole year. I took all subjects except STEM.
Did you get a job then?
Right away.
What did you get a job doing?
I was bookkeeper. And I had such a good job. My second job was Zim, Do you know who Zim is? American Israeli Shipping.
Oh.
I have to tell you, it was best job.
Why was it the best job?
Well, it has a lot of things. Every 3 weeks, the luxurious ships were going to Israel. And every 3 weeks, we had to go to the computers were as big as a room. It was, and I supposed to make sure that I have the right amount of people, which I never had. And also, the whole bookkeeping department, every 3 weeks, we went to the ship. On the way, we went to Ratnes. You know who Ratnes was? You remember this dairy restaurant on the Lower East Side?
Oh, okay.
So this was such a...
Now, when were your 2 children born? What are your children's names and when were they born?
Okay, Charles was born in 1947. When I had a baby, when all this was going on, it was very hard. I had no money. Leon wound up for 3 years in the hospital, and I had to visit him every Sunday.
And when was your daughter born?
59.
And what is
12 years later,
what was her name?
Deborah Kane. She was a lawyer.
And what problems, when you came to the United States, did you have any problems adjusting to life here?
Let me tell you, I never bought anything in my life. Maybe a few rolls. I didn't know the value of money. I was from a baby to become a grown-up. Everything was new to me.
Must have been difficult.
You know, when I went, they took me shopping. So, for shoes, because I had shoes, they were too small. So, when I traveled, I had to take off the shoes because this was the only shoes I had. I came and they took me, my cousins took me to a store. And they asked me what I want, so I showed. So I bought these shoes. And then I heard they say, she just came and she took the most expensive shoes. I didn't know the value of money anyway.
Now, when did you start talking about what happened? When did you start speaking about what happened to you during the Holocaust?
In the 70s.
And why didn't you speak before, and why did you start then?
Before, first of all, everything has a story. My daughter, my both children went to Rambam. You know, it's a Hebrew school.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was very difficult for me. So my daughter got sick. So she was 12 years old, and she went to Flatbush Yeshiva. But because she got sick, she couldn't go to school. She was on home instruction. But when she was graduating, supposed to graduate, the teacher said, her home instructor, instead of me teaching her, I bring her to school so she can graduate with the class. So she went back to school, to Flatbush. And I stayed in Flatbush. So then I heard that the principal, Rabbi Eliach, is giving a room so we can do some Holocaust. So this is where I joined them. And I don't have to tell you, I became the bookkeeper and the office manager. And we opened Center for Holocaust Studies. And the president came to see us. It was all the senators. I cannot tell you how successful we were. And the main thing, what we needed is money. I used to write grants, and I was so successful for the state, for the city. I went to speak to, because you have to justify a grant. Why should you get and why the other people don't? And I used to be in competition with these people. What's the name of the sickness that was there? You know, this contagious sickness all of a sudden, the 70s. What do we deal with? Okay.
The what?
Anyway.
AIDS?
AIDS, yes. Anyway, I had to compete with the people that needed money for the AIDS. Why are you so important? What are you doing for the public? I used to go to speak, and I used to get the grants. So this is how we survived the Center for Holocaust Studies. Now, after a few years, this turned to be a Museum of Jewish Heritage. In the meantime, I worked for my son. I was the office manager of his office for about 30 years. I still work, but not to the office. I still work from home.
Now, you still speak at schools, too.
Yeah, but I never refuse. Even so, my son said, give it up.
To go back to your story, you spoke about, I remember your sister.
Mm-hmm.
Your sister came to, when did your sister come to America?
Let's see. Let's see, 19.
She came after you, right?
Yes. She came about 3 years later.
And did you stay close to her?
She lived by me. Mm-hmm. I had a bigger apartment, so she lived with me.
When did she pass? When?
About 10 years ago.
Yeah. And your husband?
Passed away. My husband passed away in 22, August 28, 2022.
You know, your story is just a story of survival and an amazing story. Is there a message you'd like to say? Is there something you want to say or that you say to the students that you want them to know?
I have two messages, but one is for Israel. I tell the students that if we would have Israel, 6 million Jews wouldn't die. I said to the students, I say, please support Israel, love Israel. In emergency, we need a backup, and our backup in our lives as Jews is Israel.
And what is your other message? You said you have two. You said you have two messages. What is the other one?
Well, it's also about surviving. That I want to tell you, my surviving and other people surviving had really not to do exactly that I did it. That's why I survived. It's always because of something else.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
What do you want me to add?
I don't know. It's just amazing. Your story, like I said, your story is amazing. It's just an honor to hear it.
What I did when I came to United States. You know, Center for Holocaust Study. I still have the newsletters, what we did. All this, whatever we accomplish is in the Museum of Jewish Heritage.
And you were involved in that.
I was the main person then. I was the office manager, I was the bookkeeper, I was the accountant, and I also, if I didn't know something, my son's friends were accountants, they were all helping me.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Anyway, you want to see? I could show you some documents.
You have some pictures that you... Ray, can you tell me about this picture?
These pictures are part of my diary. I have a diary that I did with many, many pages. And my son wrote a book. The book is not published yet, but the book is ready to be published. We just need somebody, a publish house.
Now, the diary is what years? Do you know?
This must be 46, 45.
So after the Holocaust, when you...
But this is in Polish.
I know, right, it's in Polish.
I did translate one of the stories in English.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Can you tell us about this picture?
Yes. This picture was taken in 1939. It is unveiling of my grandmother's in the cemetery in Lodz, Poland. And this is my mother's family.
Can you point, where is your mother and father? Where are your mother and father in that picture?
And this picture, wait a minute, you see the star? Yeah. And this is my grandfather, and the rest is my mother's sisters and nephews and nieces. This was taken before the war. I found it in United States.
Thank you. Can you tell us about this picture?
Yes. This is my sister. My sister's name is Sally Brick Kelman. This was taken just before the war. Must have been 1939.
Was your sister older than you?
My sister was 5 years older than I, and she was blonde and blue eyes, and I tell you, my mother was afraid she should walk right when the Germans came in, because they all wanted to date her. Because in Poland you could right away see who is a Jew and who is not. And she didn't look Jewish.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell us about this picture?
Yes. This picture was taken of me and my husband Leon Kane when we entered United States. And the Museum of Jewish Heritage made this and sent it to each of our members.
So where was this picture taken?
This picture is taken, you can see. Can I move this away?
No.
Okay, read this. Read where it was taken.
Bremen Immigration Staging Area.
Yeah, because we entered the area and we took a picture. And then they made this Museum of Jewish Heritage made for their members. And every member got one of these.
Okay, thank you.
But this is my...
Ray, what can you tell us about this picture?
This is a picture of my husband and myself. We coming in here, and we had a picture, a regular picture, but the Museum of Jewish Heritage wanted to send this picture to every member, and they made this copy.
Okay, thank you.
This picture is my sister Sally Brick Kelman, my husband Leon Kane, and my husband's sister Marcia Kane.
Now, in the first picture, is that your husband in the middle?
Yes.
And your sister, Sally, is,
on this
What's that?
side.
and in the second picture, her husband is in it, right?
No,
Her
the
hus-
second picture is my husband
and who's
and
the other?
myself and a friend.
Okay. And when do you think these pictures were taken? About?
This is still taken in Germany, so is this one. This is my picture with Leon and a friend was taken at DP camp,
At the DP camp.
Salzheim.
Thank you. Can you
This-
tell us about this picture?
This picture is taken before my son's Charles Kane's bar mitzvah. And this picture is my husband Leon Kane, my son Charles Kane, myself, and my daughter Deborah M. Kane that just died July 5, 2023.
Thank you. Ray, please tell us about this picture.
This picture was taken in the ghetto. This picture shows my husband, two sisters, and a brother. Esther Kane Grunert, and this is his other sister, Regina, and this is Isaac, Yitzchak Kane, and my husband. You see, from the ghetto, the star, the yellow star. Now, they all were sent to Auschwitz. Now, one day, this is what my husband told me. Yitzhak said, my friend promised me a soup. And I go for the soup and come right back. When he left, this area was closed and they all were sent to the crematorium in Auschwitz. He never came back. My husband, Leon, spoke about it with a very, very angry and sad because he didn't want him to go and he wanted to sue. And he perished.
Thank you. Tell us about this picture.
This picture was taken at a crematoria, in one of the crematorias in Auschwitz,
It was taken after the war.
most probably, yes.
Okay. And I want to read what it said by it. It says, this area is being retained as a shrine to the 238,000 individuals who were cremated here. Please don't destroy. Can you tell us about this picture, Ray?
Yes. The first one here to the left is my Uncle Garfinkel from Toronto, Canada. They came here before World War I. They were very well-to-do people, and we stayed there, my husband Leon and me, for 2 months. And they wanted us to be citizens and live in Toronto, but my husband had a father in New York, and he didn't want to stay in Canada. So we came back and we struggled here in New York.
And are you and your husband in this picture?
Yes, I am the third one, and he is the fourth one. And the rest is family in Toronto.
Thank you. This concludes our interviews. Thank you so much, Ray.
You're welcome. You have everything?